Parks Commission,
Got a little echo?
Parks Commission, meeting is called to order. We'll do a roll call.
Diana Wallace.
Chad Smith?
Melissa Morrow,
Don Hudson.
Mary Elizabeth Kofer.
Victoria Johnson.
great. All right, well, I want to sadly tell you that there's a chance we will not be done in an hour. I'm just preparing you, because we have a lot to discuss, partly because we have sort of a deadline for city council to get things for their budget for next year. So I wanted to sort of break that news to you at the very beginning and to the public. If we get done in an hour, awesome, that's great. But if we don't, I just wanted to kind of prepare people that there's a chance we'll go over an hour. All right, so any public, any public comments?
Did you want to share Lori's email?
Sure.
Even though I shared it?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be great.
All right.
Hey everybody, I'm going to go ahead and share an email from Lori. She sent it yesterday since she won't be able to attend.
Lori Mills, Parks Commission member.
Yes, correct, thank you. And she says, unfortunately I'm unable to attend the July Park Commission meeting. With that, I wanted to share a few thoughts regarding the restoration of the trail. As you know, I'm a huge proponent of maintaining what we currently have in our park rather than adding to the park and being unable to take care of it to the extent we should. Our trail is a significant part of our park. I'd like to see us invest in it while keeping the integrity of the trail. I appreciate the work that Tim Eischen and team has done with our trails. They certainly have the expertise. I'd like to better understand our budget and what the council is willing to invest to best determine our approach. What I don't want to see is us do is apply Band-Aids and eventually spend much more in doing so. I'd like us to be strategic with our dollars and do what's best for the trail over the longer term, even if it takes us longer to reach the end goal. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And we'll kind of refer back to that when we get to the trail part, but I'm glad Lori got to get that in there. All right, do we have a motion on the minutes from the June 11th Park Commission meeting?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second.
Great. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. All right, discussion and possible action regarding park drainage proposals. Is there anyone who wants to lead that discussion?
I can speak to it.
Great.
We did meet with Chris. He is not the person to discuss the backfill, but he did go over his design with us, and he did send us back a bid to do his design. Didn't make it into the packet because he didn't get it to us till Friday.
Okay.
I had asked him to get it to us by Wednesday, but I guess that was not on, he couldn't do that. But we have it. The reason...
Is it in that packet or no?
And all the documents from the last meeting were put into
Okay.
this meeting, so any updated notes or anything like that
Right.
did not get into
The drawing is not updated. I can let you know that.
Okay.
Is this the drainage over here, or is this up by the field house?
At the
Field house.
Okay.
And that drawing is here. It did not change. We discussed with him going,
And
instead
when you
of
say we,
the committee, subcommittee,
say who it is.
Chad and Diana and me.
Perfect.
Met with him and discussed, instead of towing into the hillside as this drawing does, potential of pulling it on out and meeting this other wall that abuts the trail. Later, we found out that the council had asked him to tow into the wall to leave a pathway for heavy equipment.
Mm-hmm.
So he did leave a line item about that he could continue, we could do that, but while we were not doing that.
Mhm.
And then he also gave us a cost for it. And like I said, that cost came in on Friday, so it's not part of this. It could go ahead to the council. I mean,
Can you
If we-
share that document with Michaela and bring it
Michaela
up?
has it.
Oh.
It came from Chris. We were all copied on the email. I can pull it up if not, but
Chris from IW.
IWS, yeah.
And is it possible to bring it up on the whiteboard?
And what do you mean about the backfill? What was that?
So he's his drawing has a grate, a wall, and then a grate where water will go through, and we were gonna discuss, cause he said he could do design, what to do behind that wall. And he doesn't do that kind of design, so we might wanna get, if we wanna discuss how to cover the grate and maybe plant around it, we could talk to Mas Verde about that.
Mm-hmm.
I did talk to a council member about that, and the idea of putting river rock over the grate and then perhaps planting like some Mexican yucca, like is under the oak tree,
Mm-hmm.
by the.
Michaela, you
that
want me to
would
forward
be-
it to you?
I'm going to pull it up.
The, council member thought favorably of that,
Mhm.
but we haven't discussed that with anybody who knows about the plantings,
Yeah, we
so
would want someone
Mas
who's,
Verde or
Yeah.
somebody
Okay.
might be the person to consult about that, and the committee can do that if you would like us
Yeah.
to, but,
I think that would be good.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be.
If we
good
have a
idea.
grate there, we're gonna wanna do something to keep kids and stuff from,
So do you,
Okay.
I think that council already has, or they've already,
Plan.
they already have a plan.
Okay.
But yes, I would say have the committee move forward with working with Mas Verde about whatever.
what would happen once
So that
this
we
is,
could-
hardscape is in place.
Yes.
So we have the big picture,
Yeah, so that we
or
know.
full picture.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This,
Right.
this drawing is kind of inconclusive. I know the guy said he doesn't do that kind of detailed drawing, but he talks about backfill on the drawing. And then there's a grating at the bottom, an iron grate,
Mhm.
going to a pipe that will probably run under the trail. Well, if you put dirt on top of that, that water's not exactly gonna just flow through the dirt. So is that therefore gonna be a bunch of gravel like a French drain? I don't see how.
On top of the grate?
Well, here's the grate.
Uh-huh,
I assume that would be at the bottom
right.
of this, and then he's got backfill.
Yes, and he does not, that's what we would cover with Mas Verde.
Okay, how to make that work?
Exactly.
This looked to me to be sort of, the very roughest schematic. Doesn't really solve
So
problems.
the grade goes on top?
It
No.
goes over the hole where the water enters the pipe.
It would go at the bottom
Oh.
of this.
Okay.
It would be
So
at the
the-
low point, so he would force the water to go towards that grate.
And so it's a small grade.
It's
It's
an
about
18
12 by
inch by 18 inch.
Yeah,
Oh, okay,
18
that's
by
small.
18.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
huge, right.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's big enough and it's gonna be an iron grate, so it can't just easily be pulled up.
Right. I
But-
know that Mas Verde did make the statement that you can't plant on top of a bunch of rocks, so that's good that we're bringing somebody in that's knowledgeable about plants and what could grow there.
Right.
We would wanna get some expert advice on, like if we did put rocks there, what could work with it or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, this needs some
To
design work.
facilitate drainage.
But apparently Chris is not the person to discuss that with,
Right.
which
Okay.
we learned at our meeting,
Well,
so.
good to know. Well, at least the engineer has told you that.
Yes.
Yes.
But he can do this, and he gave us a bid for doing what he
And
drew
to be
up.
clear, his bid does include the backfill,
Mm-hmm.
the soil backfill, but it doesn't include the landscaping on top of that.
Right, so.
That's the area where he
soil-
said he
Yeah,
was,
that's Mas
he was
Verde.
not an expert.
Yeah.
So, but his bid has installed 20 cubic yards of soil backfill behind the new wall and grade.
That's tricky because dirt that'll support plants, water doesn't just rip through it. I mean, if you have a heavy rain, it's gonna flow over the top
Slow
of
it
it.
down.
But gravel won't support anything except, in my experience, Bermuda grass.
Right, well, the only thing what we were talking about more was the grate could be covered with river stone, just to filter. But it
And it's,
doesn't have
the
to
grade
be.
is, so this, but if you have a retaining wall,
Mm-hmm.
well, I'm not sure, that's where I don't really know what this drawing is saying, so maybe I should just wait till
Yeah,
it
well,
can be
and
interpreted.
that-
So that document that was in the packet last month went to council, and council asked for some additional detail. And so what has now been placed in the packet, the last two attachments for that item, are his updates. So we took his document, it's the second attachment, I'll switch it over, but we took his document, sent it off to our engineers, and they gave him comments on here's some other things we'd like to see as far as additional detail. And so the new document is more updated, but it's still being reviewed by our engineers to make sure it's got everything it needs to have. So they agreed that it was a little unclear.
So
what
even
all-
this that he sent most recently
that has not
gotten
been,
through the engineering.
no,
review.
it is
Okay.
still being reviewed by our engineers.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it may not be ready to go to council next week.
It may not. It
Anyway.
depends. Yeah, it depends if our, so I guess we would bring it back to council, and then our instructions were to take that once it was completed and go get bids with it.
Okay.
But until we have a document that's fully, approved, we haven't used it to go get additional bids.
Right.
So it seems like this is one of those bids we would need to go get with it, and then we would take it and go get a couple others, especially if it's gonna be over 50,000.
Yeah.
That
Which that
triggers this one would trigger, kind of a bidding requirement,
Right.
so.
I'm just glad that you have engineers looking at this to
Mhm.
make sure that it's actually gonna work, cause I don't understand how, if we put fill dirt in there, that we're gonna get the fills.
Yeah, it kind of shows it sloping a little bit, so
I think the dirt comes in after they fix the grade.
Yeah, but how does the water get to the grate? If it's,
Yeah, 'cause the grate should be at the bottom of the fill.
oh,
No, I
I see,
said
because of
grade,
the
not
slope, you
grate.
think,
They're gonna have to regrade that whole area so
Okay.
that it will flow correctly.
It's gonna be a funnel into the drain.
And-
okay,
but
so
they will-
the
that-
dirt
is that-
won't be on top of the grate.
They will include
No.
additional soil in the regrade.
That's what I didn't get.
No, the
Okay.
grade will be exposed.
Right.
It'll be at the
Yeah,
low
no,
point.
no soil on
Okay,
top
I
of the
feel
grade.
better about that.
So
Okay.
Ashley, would it be helpful for that committee to do additional work on what I call the finishing touches of the top of it, basically?
As in like the landscaping and all
Yes.
of that. Yes, I guess
Or has
we
council
would-
already asked Moss Verde to do that?
They have not asked Moss Verde to do that. I don't know that any thought was put into, like, we were just told to go get the wall, extending the wall. That was the bids we were going to go get. Now that there's landscaping involved, I don't believe that has been directed to anybody yet. And so if this group would like to make recommendations about it, if it's something that we could keep out of the, construction process and just our staff can do the landscaping later, that might be a way to handle it too, because we do have money in the budget for landscaping and plants and things like that. So
That,
if that's
It
the
should
I
case.
be
think
that
that we
simple,
would really
I would
want to
think.
be careful with whatever we plant there, so it will facilitate percolation of the water down. I
Mhm.
mean, the percolation is everything. I mean, for instance, we've got some grasses up there that they just make the water run off.
Right.
So we want to be real specific there, but
Mhm.
so if you have somebody there that's knowledgeable enough to choose the plants accordingly. Otherwise, I would suggest we get someone who's very knowledgeable with that specifically.
when we
And,
could
yeah.
get the information, if the city could plant it. I mean,
Right, yeah,
could install
I think it depends
Okay.
on if it's all gonna be part of the project, or if the project is simply the wall and the grading and the grate.
Well, if the
It's
committee
kind
can do that, why don't y'all move forward with making a recommendation of the plantings?
All right, it would make sense that we go with the structure first and then add the landscaping
Yeah.
and the window dressing later. So
Yeah.
we could definitely send that much to council.
Yeah, so you'll have enough time between
Mhm.
now and then to go
This
make
is
a-
almost like something that, what's here is, I don't know if any of this as defined will stand when somebody starts really working on it. So we may be looking at someone just thinking, well, this is not the way to do this. And I don't know if they can just come and say, okay, just do this for Phil and then everything's good. We could run into that, which would be, this should not be a big design thing, but this just isn't something we can really work with as it's defined. I mean, so just a thought.
Okay, does anyone have any motion or anything else they want to do on this today? Okay, the
I'm
committee,
kind of
go ahead.
confused about, so do we even need a motion if council has already instructed engineers to look at?
I don't believe we do. I think, if we get the engineering clearance on this document, we would go ahead and start getting bids and bring those. I doubt we'll
Right.
have that in time for next week's council meeting. So if working on the landscape and something is interesting, I think that would be something that y'all should do. As far as the actual construction of it, getting bids, getting this cleared, that's
Mhm.
kind of council has directed staff to work on that at this
Because we
point.
have other bids anyway. I mean, maybe they've run out of
We
their.
do have a couple older bids for
Yeah.
the wall, but those were done before we had these plans, and so we would have to take these plans back to them and say, hey, this is actually what we want done. I think previously it was just, hey, we want a retaining wall right here, and they, they bid
Okay.
it, but if
So
we have
those
the
are kind of
engineering-
aside, and now we're just working with this drawing and our city engineers
Right,
and bids separately.
right, and
Okay.
council did ask us to bring those back to them, with
So
costs
what do they want
associated.
from us?
I don't know that they needed more from council or from Park Commission on this retaining
Okay.
wall at this time.
Very good.
I don't think I think it was something that Park Commission kind of generated as far as the landscaping on top of it goes, and so I
Mhm.
think that would be great to make a recommendation
Okay.
on.
Great, thank you.
All
Thanks,
right.
Ashley.
Of course.
So now we're gonna move to discussion of possible action. Oh, is there any other drainage projects that we need to cover today?
I don't think so.
There's Moss Verde's proposal is on your agenda, and drainage update.
That's on the agenda?
Well,
No,
it's
just,
right here, Moss Verde drainage proposal. I think that's
What are you
his.
looking at?
I believe that's just the same attachment that was in there last month.
Yeah, it's just the
They
same
were just going to
attachment from
carry
last month.
everything over,
Okay.
from the previous month.
Okay. Good
Just
enough.
so that if anyone wanted to discuss anything, it was there for people
Gotcha.
to be able to look at.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay. All right, well then we'll move to item number 4, discussion of possible action regarding trail rehabilitation project.
So, Laurie and Dawn and I, took a look at this, and, you've heard Laurie's thoughts, and Dawn and I both have ours, and we looked at when we got the proposal from Isham General Construction, and I know it was stated that I brought this forward, this group because he's a friend. First, I want to state to you guys, I hope you'll show me the respect of understanding I would never do that. I brought him forward because he's been vetted. This is the guy that's been building the Violet Crown Trail. He's solid. I would never have brought him forward, suggested him otherwise. So, we looked at his proposal, and it's a big, because of the price. So, Dawn and Laurie and I met, and we looked at his proposal, and we looked at, talked about different options. And when I look at this, and I think one thing I see is that one of our options is, sure, let's do this. Let's build the Cadillac of trails. But how do you do that? I mean, do we do it all at once? Where do we get the funding? Do we do it in stages? Do part now, part later? Do we do part of his plan? Maybe we don't do it exactly like he has it, but we do part of the trail. The part where I think it's on the northwest side where we have the bigger erosion issues. And he talked about 2 different products. One is the Stay Lock that has the permanent binder, and the other one is a product I'm not familiar with, I don't know the name of it, and it is moisture activated that he was talking about putting in these other areas. So there's different possibilities on what we could do here, or we could do nothing. We could continue just throwing bags of crushed granite down every time it rains. But I honestly think in our community, we want and deserve more than that. So I know that when people build trails, they look at their budget and what they're going to spend on this trail in the future, and they either plan to do 10 or 100% of their budget. I mean, what they spend on the trail in the future, that trail, I mean, we could keep just refurbishing this trail till the cows come home, or we could do it right the first time and that's it. So I think it depends on what we want to do. Do we want to do it right, or do we want to just do baby steps? What do we want to do, and what will council accept? Those were Lori's thoughts. We don't know what council will approve. So it's hard for me to make a recommendation knowing that. Obviously, I think if we could do this trail and do a really great trail all at once, that would be wonderful. But I don't know that council will approve that. And Dawn has some other thoughts, and I'll let him speak with those.
Thank you. I agree with you that I would be surprised if council was willing to sign off on the 250,000. I like how Tim Eischen would do the trail. He'd put down compacted road base, he'd set the border stones in concrete, and he'd fill it in with the decomposed granite. It would be a very durable, very long-lasting trail. And I've seen the Violet Crown Trail. I walked it with him and Phil and some others, and it's impressive. So I was trying to get a hold of Kevin, and because I know he's got some thoughts on the trail, and we couldn't connect Friday, Saturday, Sunday, so he called me on the phone on Monday when I was watering the butterfly garden. And as we were talking, I walked all the way around the trail. And what I observed is that I've seen neater borders, but 90% plus of the rock borders are fine. And approximately the same for the granite. It's there, it's serviceable, it's not eroding or going away. My thoughts on this are to get somebody who's like Tim, for example, to tell us exactly how to deal with the places that are eroding, where we are having damage to the trail, whether it's putting a pipe under it or hardening it with a rock surface like we have in several places kind of near the field house. And then with those defined with drawings and specifications, get our maintenance people to do it as they have time to do it. It's not something that's gonna go away if it's not done immediately. And so that was, and Kevin kind of sort of agreed with me that might make sense.
That they do, I'm sorry to interrupt, that they do what?
If you walk the trail, you will see that most of the trail is in good shape.
Yeah, I know, but you were saying the staff could do what?
They could take the areas where there is water flowing over the trail
And do what?
and following a specification by somebody like Tim or an engineer, rebuild the trail in those areas, reset the rocks, put a foundation under the rocks so that they're set.
Okay, I see what you're saying, okay.
Rebuild those areas only. And Kevin said, he's opposed to, the reason I talked to Kevin is because he knows a lot more about this stuff than I do. And I'm a student of this. I learned a lot talking to Tim, too. It was rather impressive. But as a bare minimum, so we've got the Cadillac on one end and the 57 Volkswagen sedan on the other, used. The cost wouldn't be real high on having our maintenance people do it. And there's not that much to it. I was surprised. I just walked all the way around the thing, and the rocks get a little, crooked with each other, but it's not horrible. It's still very serviceable. There are places where a rock or two are high. Those are easily fixed. Kevin didn't think we really needed a road base underlayment on the trail. He said once you put the decomposed granite in place, it generally stays there. Some will wash away. He said, but as things go, we're not losing a whole lot of decomposed granite to erosion. And he and I also talked about his and Izzy's proposal to put a demonstration of a footing wall in. And that showed up at our last meeting, but it didn't have a lot of detail about it. And so we, as a park commission, we didn't take any action on it. But what he's talking about doing is putting in about a 5x5 or a 6x6 footing underground. So dig a trench, remove the stones, dig a trench beside the trail, put in this footing with at least one piece of rebar in it. A good work, they'd compact the ground underneath, pour a continuous footing, and he wanted to do 100 feet on either side. He wanted to do it by the field house. They'd leave enough room between the grade and the footing to where there could be some sand or sand and concrete or mortar to set the stones in, because the stones are not, the dimension between flat to flat on the stones is not perfect. It's plus or minus half, 3/4 inch. So they would basically set them like a mason sets bricks, you know, where they put them in place, tap them where they need to go, and then let that set up, and then replace the or maybe new stuff. We've got a bid for around 10,000 for that, and he said he wanted to do that to show what this could look like with putting a footing wall all around the park. And I pushed back on the footing wall all around the park because I don't think it needs it. I don't think we have instability and erosion problems throughout the trail. We do have it where there's water washing over it, and where there's, like next to the butterfly garden, it's like the stones are low, and so there's wash over that, and you can barely see the border in places. But my thoughts are that could be, I don't know. I was going to ask, do the maintenance people have to constantly be fixing the trail, or is it, I mean, is that a real
Well,
big?
we haven't had a lot of rain.
But I'm talking over the last few years. Is that,
I'm not aware of how often they do that. I can talk to them though and see if they have a rough idea of, you know, how many times a month or a year they go and add an additional crush grade.
I had intended to talk to Izzy about that, but I just didn't quite make that happen.
Okay.
And I had a couple more thoughts also.
But, since you've already spoken, let's each, if anybody else has a question, any other questions? Okay,
Okay,
go right ahead.
okay. One other thing that we had discussed was the other possibility was to do, it gets the numbers down, was to do a trail without a border. Which is how the Violet Crown Trail is done. That was one option, and the reason that would reduce the cost so much is because it takes a lot of labor out. So if you look at the itemized estimate that we got from Aishin General Contracting, there was a considerable amount of money that was spent on labor, so that would reduce that. I don't know by how much, but that was one thought. And the other thing I wanted to talk about was that when at one time one of our council members put forth that we could spend, I think it was like 100 and something thousand on doing the border set in the cement. And I appreciate the fact that he was looking at something that was sustainable, and I think that's what we really should be looking at. Let's do this right. Let's do it right now. That's what I'd like to do, and not keep going back and throwing a Band-Aid on it and have our staff always go out there with another bag. Anyway, so I appreciate that he was looking for sustainability with the border. But my point is, for just twice that, we could do the entire trail. So whether we did it in one fell swoop or we split it into 2 years, I like the idea of having a sustainable trail. And the other thing is, when we talk about the gravel and where it goes, I can tell you for a fact it does go somewhere, because somebody I know that's with the Trail Conservancy tells me that granite ends up in the bottom of Lady Bird Lake. So ours is
Not
not
ours.
just, ours is, right, ours is not magically disappearing. So with all the problems that we have with drainage in Rollingwood, it's going somewhere where it's not meant to be. So I think we need to think about that, both the labor on behalf of on the part of our staff, as well as the fact that we're still just putting Band-Aids on it.
And yet if a Band-Aid is applied properly as a repair, it's not ugly or it's, I mean,
A Band-Aid.
but if you look at the trail, most of it is in very serviceable.
All right, so that's it for my thoughts.
That's it for my
So
thoughts.
this bid is to do the whole trail
Yes.
in this way, but I remember when he was out, he was talking about we didn't have to do the whole trail. We could do,
Yes.
he could, so I'm wondering if we could have him back out
We
to
could.
to get his advice on if we don't have the funds to do the whole trail, what areas would he recommend and how could we start to chip
And
away?
We actually discussed that, and what he talked about is the area on the side over by Rollingwood Drive, we don't have as much erosion over there. And I think the part on Gentry Drive, there's not as much erosion there. It's the side by the Playscape. Wait, yeah,
By the cliff.
and Butterfly Garden, yeah, by the cliff.
Yeah.
No
This
doubt.
is where, so he, in fact, when he talked to us, he was talking about, this is the side where they'd be using the stay lock. And over there, what was that other binder called? It was one you said that was moisture,
remember.
water
Stabilizer,
activated.
just
Yeah.
stabilizer, he calls it.
Anyway, so yeah, he could.
Cause I mean, that might be something that we try to look at. I understand that this stay lock is also considered impervious cover.
And he was not
Yes.
proposing that we do that on the whole thing.
But
he-
this does propose it, right? This cost is.
No, he proposes that we use this only on part of it. That's why he puts two different products on here.
Okay.
Cause
So-
he's only proposing that we use that where it's necessary. On the other side, he was using the moisture activated one.
All right, but do we have to have all that? I mean, aren't there ways to tweak even this?
I don't know, that's a good question. Well, you mean, could he use less binder somewhere, like no binder somewhere, you're thinking?
Right, yeah, I guess, because even both of these treatments of the trail are impervious. So my question would be, are there ways to do the trail where it's not all impervious, where we can?
Yeah, you don't need the stabilizer. He
Certain
said
of
it
pervious.
helps, but he said you need the stay lock where there's water flowing over it.
Right, and that makes sense.
But the rest of the trail is pretty flat, and both of these things make the trail a little firmer.
Mhm.
The stay lock in particular. The stabilizer is you don't even notice it's there until it gets wet, and then it's like a gel. It kind of sets up nominally, not like hard, but it sets up like a gel, and it just holds stuff in place. But he said you don't really need it. He likes to use it where it's, highly trafficked, lots of.
That might be worth another conversation.
It might be, but
So to reiterate, I think Lori, one of what I got out of her message was that she would like some direction from council about sort of their appetite for how much money they would be willing to spend.
and I absolutely agree. I don't think I can
Yeah.
go anywhere else
Yeah.
until I know that.
So the thing is, in order for council to consider something, it's almost like they're not gonna write us a blank check. Will you remind me, Ashley, what is the parks total budget this year?
Kind of as an aside, I'd like to see us accomplish a couple of our smaller projects
Mm-hmm,
before we take on, and basically prove our worth
mm-hmm.
before we take on these kinds of numbers, these kind of zeros.
And the reason why this was because it was everyone's number one. Or
Mhm.
really, it was after that drainage project, the trail was something that almost everyone agreed on, cause it was something that multiple ages could use, so many people could do, but it is a costly one if we were to do the entire thing. Again, getting back to what Dawn was saying and what Kevin has mentioned, I think the alternative is, do we feel like it's worth doing the whole thing? Or do we also feel like there's some benefit to doing, taking the places where water is an issue and keeps washing it out and causes the staff to have to work on it? Could Tim give us an alternative plan that's, say, $50,000 that gets us feeling like
Where it's durable.
that
Yeah.
and I guess, and then going back to the council, it's like, so council, do you want us to come up with a $50,000 solution for the walking trail, or do you want us to come up with a $250,000 one? That's the part, Ashley, I don't know, you know, how often in other water projects or drainage or other things, is that, do you put the cart before the horse, or, you know, I mean, how do you figure out which you should be recommending?
I would say as they're starting their exceptional item review next week at their council meeting. So I would say the best way to find out is by putting an exceptional item to them and saying, you know, here's what it costs. You can give options. You can say, you know, the Cadillac of trails will cost us this much. We think we can get something that everybody might like for this much. And you can see kind of what their willingness to fund it would be. You don't necessarily have to have, you know, everything 100% figured out, but you can just kind of give them some options. I mean, the worst they can do is say, you know, no, not at this time, or come back with some more information or something. But I think now is a good time to do that. And so if y'all could come up with, you know, a couple options for amounts and what you're kind of wanting to do, I think that's a good time to discuss it. And then of course have somebody here at that meeting to talk to them about it. What they'll do is they'll take in all the exceptional items next week, but they'll sit on them for another month. And so that can give you time to kind of flesh it out a little bit more. They can give you some direction on maybe where they're leaning towards the more expensive one or one of the others, or if they want you to look at getting some funding anywhere else, you know, maybe RCDC or some other things. That might all be things we can talk about there. And your whole park budget is about $118,000 is what the general park budget is.
And most of that is personnel.
Yeah, a good chunk of it is for sure. It looks like your personnel is about half, almost half is personnel, and then everything else is, you know, supplies, maintenance, equipment, all of that.
Yep.
So.
Okay.
Couple of things.
Go ahead.
Additionally, in my talk with Kevin yesterday, he said that he was going to ask council for $75,000, and I think all we talked about was the trail. I assume he's thinking for the trail, but I don't know if we'll spend that all on the trail. And he said he thinks he can get RCDC to match that. So that's one thing. The other thing is he also feels real strongly about putting in a test stretch of this footing, so that we can see and others can see what that looks like, and how he said you can really make the rocks look neat right there. And I'm thinking to myself, well, none of the other rocks are neat. They're all. So I don't know if that. I don't know if that's something we want to consider. I don't know if we want to consider that or not.
And or correct me if I'm wrong. The test costs $10,000.
Correct.
And who does that? Who's landscaping? Because that's not our staff doing it.
No,
I didn't even know that was any.
that's All Seasons Lawn Care.
Right. Okay, so it was $10,000 to do the test, but the idea would be the full amount would be $100,000. Like, let's say we loved the
yeah,
10,000.
106.
Right. So, just again to reiterate, test would be 10,000, and if we decide to do more, it would be another 90,000 or 100,000 more than that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Ian and Kevin did reach out to me and just also reiterated that before this meeting. Just said, you know, if y'all, just reminding you it's on your agenda, and if anyone has a motion that they want to do about that, they could.
You know, 100. It doesn't take 100 square feet for proof of principle. I mean, maybe. I think he's going to cross one of the water crossings by the field house as a kind of a more complete demonstration. Maybe the difference between 50 and 100 running feet of that is not huge. I don't know.
My concern is that I'm actually thinking that one option of getting the cost of the trail down is to do away with the border completely.
Sell
I
all
mean,
that
how
stone.
important is that stone? I mean, that's not what people walk on, or push their baby strollers on, or ride their bikes on. I don't know. You know, and anyway, so I don't know.
So we have 20 minutes before an hour will be
Oh,
done.
yeah, we need to,
I know Diana mentioned other smaller projects.
right.
Was there anything on this agenda item though? Okay. Does anyone have a motion that they would like to make concerning the trail right now?
I don't know how to put the motion forward, but
We
I'd
can-
like
You
for,
can talk about it. What are you thinking?
I would like city council to consider the proposal that we got from Isham General Contracting for the trail.
For a total cost of,
$249,945. And if this is not acceptable, would they be willing, I don't, how would we do that?
so I think Ashley, can you help us craft kind of what you were talking about, the multiple scenario?
Sure. So, if you could just give me kind of the description of what amounts you'd like them to consider. If not the 249, then maybe we'd be interested in, half that, or if there's another proposal, I can put all that information into a document
Okay.
for them to review as part of their budget
I don't know how
process.
to guess, I'm just pulling numbers out of the
Yes,
thin
you
air
are,
here.
I
Mhm.
know.
May I make a
Oh.
suggestion?
Yes.
I mean, I don't know, we're in a big rush to make it to city council next week, is that the issue?
Yes.
Well, it's for them to try to budget, to
Yeah,
get
well,
into the
and,
budget.
but the reason I ask is
Yeah.
because I would really like to, I don't feel like I have enough information. I would really like to talk to Tim again and see if we could get him to give us 3 bids,
Mm-hmm,
for tiers of trail
Mhm.
that would be sustainable and wouldn't require as much maintenance as what we have.
mm-hmm,
Maybe one without the rock, and just see what we could take to council that actually has some substance behind it, because we
Mhm.
can't pull those numbers out of there
Mhm.
ourselves. But I'd love for Tim to give us 3 levels of trail to propose.
So, since we can't get that because we can't get that in time,
Mhm.
because we're here today, should we go with 150,000 and 200,000? I don't know, what do y'all,
well, I think you should for sure do the full, because
Yeah,
that one you
definitely do
actually
the
have a bid
full.
for. And then, to me, yeah, you could drop it down to,
150, because Kevin said he's gonna try to get that much.
Now,
money.
would this be in addition to the one that Councilmember Glasheen is planning to put on the agenda? I know you mentioned he had talked about putting one, and I believe we have an exceptional item from him for trail related, him and the mayor, or maybe it's the mayor's, I'm not sure, trail related improvements. So would this be in addition to that? Would it be something where, if we already know something is coming related to the trail, we can attach some of the, maybe this other quote you all have, and maybe someone could just talk at that budget
Yeah.
workshop during that item? That
I
might
don't
be
know
a
if he would
time.
be using his money towards this, or if he's gonna be doing something separate from this.
Right,
That
right,
would
yeah,
be
Yeah.
I understand. I haven't spoken to
Yeah.
him. I know, Dawn, you said you
So-
might
This all depends on what council is willing to spend.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
That
the
makes it tricky
stone-
for us.
The stone, there's 2, because Tim also has a plan for this stone. And I don't know whose plan, if we just did stone border and left it at that, we could either do Kevin's plan for the stone or, Isham's plan. Because they both have ways of setting the stone.
mm-hmm,
So we're not comparing apples to apples here.
Mhm.
And I'm a bit confused about what, I mean, I guess we need answers from council on what's most attractive. We have a bid here, it doesn't need stone, or it could have stone, or we could just do stone and use this bid. Cause their bid for stone is also at that threshold where we need to go out and get bids, right?
well, you mean for the demonstration one?
Not
or
the demonstration,
The other one,
right.
the bigger one.
And the demonstration is just gonna show us what stabilized stone is gonna look like.
Yeah. I would recommend, soon, anybody concerned, just walk that trail. I know we all do, but I walked it as I was talking to Kevin, observing. The only place the trail is messed up is along the cliff. And I can't see any real rationale for
The whole trail.
doing the whole trail. I mean,
So-
it could be made really nice. I mean, no kidding, he's a pro. But if you look at it, it's very serviceable in most areas.
So you saw the sinkholes?
The sinkhole near the Round Garden by Rollingwood Drive,
No, there's some sinkholes along the trail.
didn't notice those.
Yeah, those are, well, anyway.
Those would be easily fixed.
Okay, so it sounds like what we really need.
Yeah, okay, so
Unfortunately,
let's-
to make a
let's finish
decision.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it sounds like what we need from Tim is another bid. The less non-Cadillac bid that at least tells us what would be the minimum of what you could do that would improve the trail.
Well, and I think maybe that's something we take to council, is just letting them know this is our high-end bid. We would like to go back and get 2 other intermediate bids, that we can bring back to them, but kind of at least have a ballpark.
Can we put something forward now and then get
Yeah.
these, and then get
Yes.
these?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though.
Because
is-
they'll come in.
But you
under-
just have to have, the thing is, council has to have something to consider.
Right.
Because
Right.
otherwise they're doing our work.
Right.
So
you
why
know.
don't we, as the trail group, why don't we send Tim please give us like a budgetary estimate for doing these things, as well as a budgetary estimate for doing these things. I could
How
throw
did,
something
how
like that.
did you, no, how did you word that? A minimum of what he could do?
So, if Tim could give us what is the least amount that you think would be wise to spend on improving the trail?
The low budget
The
action
biggest
trail.
bang for our buck. What's the, what could we do to make the trail sustainable? And this is also taking to Lori's, what she's talking about. Make it sustainable, long-term, and improve the current quality of using it.
Okay, and then also give us, then a step above that would be to do the trail maybe without the borders. Okay, I'll work on 2
Yeah.
other,
Yeah.
because
I
that would
like
take
the
some.
borders. I think the borders are great.
Well,
If we
But
don't,
yeah,
it's
it's money.
just
We're trying to
information.
get
It's
some
just
numbers.
information.
I think
Sure.
it's important to have borders if you don't have stabilized granite, because the borders help stabilize it.
Yeah, but
So
if we had stabilized,
if you
it's
have
working at
stabilized, you
Violet
don't.
Crown
So I
Trail.
think the question to Tim is, which direction do you go in that regard to get it in at a better price point?
Okay,
So, are we gonna have a motion or no motion?
I'd like to go ahead and put something forward to city council now.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, so state your motion.
I would like city council to consider the proposal by Ishin General Construction for the Rollingwood Park Trail reconstruction. And know that we can come up with a couple of less expensive options if needed.
So, the motion is, Ashley, or Michaela, do you have it written down?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to
Yes.
repeat it back? So we're like, city council should consider the proposal from Tim Arshin for the Rollingwood Park Trail, reconstruction, and know that we can come up with, less expensive options if needed.
Do you think they'll do that?
Could we just say in the form of an exceptional item, and then
Uh-huh.
we'll put it to them during their budget workshop?
Yes.
Okay, in the
Yes.
form of an
In
exceptional
the
item.
form
we'll
of an
just-
exceptional item.
Okay,
So do we have in there the option for city council to look at doing, basically stabilizing the weak parts of the trail?
No, we're gonna come back to that
Right,
with
so-
the later.
right, so we'll put in the description, and I may, I might reach out to one of you to make sure we have when we have the document completed, but it will just say, you know, this is the highest quote, this is for everything. Park Commission is interested in doing anything that will, you know, improve the trail, even if, you know, that costs less, and so if you're interested in spending a certain amount of money, they can let you guys know at this next, meeting, which is next week on Wednesday, and then that might give you guys more of a ballpark if they're wanting to see, $100,000 or 150, or if there's
If I
less,
can
they
get
have-
these other proposals before then, do you want them?
If you can get them to me in the next day or two, that would be helpful, because we are putting all of the exceptional items together.
I will,
So,
I will
okay.
try.
Okay.
There's something happening right now that,
Okay.
that might,
I still don't
As long as it's part
understand
of the
what this
motion.
motion
So
is.
this motion is, a recommendation to consider the proposal that Tim Eishen, has proposed for a cost of $249,000.
okay.
I've never really heard of a motion like this. If this amount exceeds the council's desires, please let us know a dollar amount that you think would be acceptable.
That sounds great.
We can then ask him, if we got 50,000, would it be worth it to do these things?
right.
That
But
sounds
it's
great.
not accepting, we're not proposing, and this is just to be clear, we're not proposing Kevin's go to the other landscape place and do that right now. We're just asking them to consider the proposal from Tim Eishen with Staylock, with the way he's gonna do the border secure, all that stuff.
That sounds great.
That's the motion. It hasn't been
So
passed
it's,
yet.
it's, please consider this, and if that's too much money, let us know what dollar amount might work. That's,
Yes.
that,
Yep.
That basically,
Okay.
yeah, that
Yep.
sounds great. And if someone could be here during that,
I will be here.
okay, that would be
When
very
is it?
helpful. It's at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 17th.
Okay,
Is
yeah,
the budget
I will be
hearing,
here.
or the budget workshop. So, be a good time
is
to.
that a city
discuss.
council meeting? Or-
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at 6 o'clock or an hour early because of the budget workshop. So they'll have an hour at budget workshop.
And if
Okay.
anybody from that committee wants to be here also to speak, I'm happy to have them speak as well.
I think I can be here.
So, will you read back the motion?
I don't know that she got the most
Okay,
last.
okay.
The last one.
That one I just did?
We will.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll record. We'll go back with the recording and get your
perfect.
very last
Great.
motion there. So we'll be set
So,
on that.
all in favor of that motion, say aye.
I,
Can't support.
Okay, all opposed, say nay.
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 Okay, the motion does not pass.
I'm abstaining.
Should we know? Okay.
I just don't feel like I
Yeah,
have enough
sure.
information.
No, that's okay. That's totally fine. No, that's how I
what
do-
did you say?
Like a roll call.
A roll call.
Just
To
so
know.
we
Yes.
can
Oh,
make sure
okay.
Yes, so, all in favor, say aye. Mary Elizabeth?
I, Mary Elizabeth.
All nay, opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Don,
Nay.
Chad,
Dawn.
Diana,
Abstain.
and Victoria abstained.
And you were for, I take it, since it was your motion,
I'm not voting,
not voting.
because I'm
Okay.
just, I'm only, in my world, chairman only votes if it changes the outcome
Breaks
of
ties.
Gotcha.
of the
Okay.
thing. So if I have to break a tie or make a tie,
Okay.
sorry, that's,
We'll
okay.
probably record that as an abstain then. Is
Yeah,
that okay? Okay.
sure.
Is there anything else we should do with this, or do we let this die, or how it happens now?
You can
I-
make another motion?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion that
Okay.
we go back to Tim Eishen and and get more information from him on levels of trail that
We could do that, it just won't happen before the city council. I mean, we just can't push it forward to
In the budget process.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, why don't we do that? Yeah.
That's what I would move to do.
Okay,
Okay.
so Victoria's making a motion to go to Tim Eishen and find an alternative.
2 or 3 alternatives
Two or
that we
three
could take
alternatives.
to council.
I second the motion.
Great, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Oh, are you opposed or in favor?
I guess I'm okay, yes.
Okay.
Aye.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Do we want to take a look at this, test of the footing wall that,
Are you making a motion?
okay,
That wasn't
yeah.
on the agenda, was it?
It is, it's part of the,
Yeah.
it's,
It
under
was.
discussion possible action regarding trail rehabilitation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I don't know that I'm in favor of this.
Then don't make a motion.
Not gonna make a motion,
Okay,
okay?
good job.
If Kevin's not gonna come to the meeting, then of course he
No,
can't
no.
make a motion
He
anyway.
can make a motion at his own council meeting if he wants to, without our support. But it's on the record that we could not, muster a motion in favor of
Fair
that
enough.
proposal. All right, Next, we have update and discussion possible action regarding tree proposal. Did we get new numbers?
Yeah, I was a
Because
little
I didn't
confused
see new
about
numbers.
that.
We
I thought-
did, and,
Here's-
but not necessarily, we don't know that we necessarily needed them. We got them just in case.
Okay.
We got these. Diana, do you wanna speak on this?
Well, at the moment, I'm not sure what you're referring to, which one.
The trees?
Okay, I gotta find that selection.
So the tree proposal we had before had trees and a bunch of other plantings in it.
Shrubs and a bunch of
Right.
grasses,
Right.
like, taller grasses,
Right.
and irrigation.
Mhm.
The,
So
the-
we got a second proposal that just took out some of those shrubs,
Mhm.
thinking we needed to get the cost down. But then Don said, but I like those other plants. So,
Well, we also have to, we're running irrigation, so, it would make sense. I mean, the dollars matter a lot, but when they're running irrigation lines, it'd be nice if all the plants were there and they could put the irrigation lines to them. They'll be, they won't be running big sprinklers, they'll be running local irrigation. I forget what those things are called, but
Drip or?
yeah, like a drip lines. But if you go back and add the irrigation after those plants are added, should we ever do that, that would be kind of messy. And also, in describing what he's doing, he's picking plants that will help the dirt stay loose and absorb moisture. The plants
Percolate.
he's proposing are good for the trees.
Right.
So, I kinda like the full enchilada myself. It's a lot of money. It's almost 50,000.
yeah, but it stayed under 50,000.
Yeah,
And this is for Moss Verde to put in all those trees.
correct.
So,
And
does anybody have questions about the bid, or is anybody ready to make a motion?
Do we know where the trees are going? Do we have it
yeah, they're gonna
all
be
mapped
between, on the edge of field 2 and then the 3, 4, and 5 fields, that strip between the fields and the parking lot. It's currently got those big,
between the fields and the pool?
Between the
Yeah,
trail,
yes.
yes.
Got it. Okay.
Uh-huh.
so,
Can you bring up, Michaela, I think there was a map of it.
The updated one?
Yeah.
So planting in that triangular space north of the ball field and across from the butterfly garden, we're talking about putting some trees there. And then, alongside between the trail and the parking lot.
I think there was a map though.
yeah, there is a map.
And the trees that he's talking about doing, they're at different heights, so
I think it was in the agenda item as written.
Maybe it's the one right before that.
Like the top
It's
of
in the
it,
agenda item summary sheet.
yeah. No,
Yep, that's
that's
it.
it.
There you go.
Let's see if I can rotate it.
So area 1 is that triangle by the butterfly garden.
Uh-huh.
And then area 2 is that long strip between, field 2 and, 3, 4, and 5.
So you know where those big stones are? He'd be planting kind of between those,
Okay.
all down that road.
And it'd be trees with,
Like,
Other
big
plants.
like the big muley, grass and the Gulf muley, different grasses there that'll help the water to percolate. So he said that the grass that's there just encourages the water to run off. And so by planting these real specific grasses there, it will help the water to be absorbed into the grass, so it'll actually be healthy for the trees. And the trees he's proposing, if you look at the list, do you have that in front of you? It had
Sure.
the, oak burrs, the, chinkapins, the Monterey's. He had a few, red buds, which is gonna be shorter tree, the Mexican plum. So, all of those are, you know, so he's talking about staggering the taller trees and the shorter trees. There was a design, he had sent us an artificial AI design that he had sent us at one time. It was really pretty.
Like, it looked like a photograph, kind
It
of.
did.
Yeah. I don't know how to,
So that area one, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
What were you gonna say, Dawn?
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna ask, the trees that would be planted in area one, I'm assuming wouldn't overshadow the butterfly garden too
No,
much?
we already looked at that.
Yeah, and we mentioned that in our request.
Okay. So
I don't know how to evaluate this bid. I know it seems like 10,000 is a lot for a sprinkler system. But maybe there's more to it than I'm aware, I don't know.
I think that.
I wonder if we could take this bid and now that we know what trees we need, and maybe take it to one or two others and see if this is the right price for trees that, you know, 4 oak burrs should cost whatever.
These are some 65-gallon, these are some pretty big trees.
Yeah,
Well, that would,
they're huge, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think when you're dealing with trees of this size, most people will come out and install them for you.
Oh, yeah.
Most companies.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, I think it'd behoove us to try and get
Comparative
one or
bids.
two other bids, just to make sure, as part of our diligence, that this is the right price.
Okay, but are you talking about just for the cost of the trees? Or are you talking about somebody that's gonna do the work and guarantee, I mean,
Right.
this guy.
most of these companies will do that.
Okay,
I just wanna make sure these are the right prices, and I
Yeah.
apologize, I committed to something.
No, you're
Sorry
good.
to take off.
Thank you.
But, thanks.
Yep.
uh-huh.
So Chad's suggesting we get, at least 2 more bids, to get a comparison if we couldn't do this. My other question is, if we have this list, other than putting the irrigation in, is this something that our staff could do?
Probably not. A 65-gallon tree requires, yes, they could do it, but it's a huge amount of work.
Uh-huh,
I mean, they'll be bringing out a
yeah,
65 gallons is kind of like, probably weighs a couple tons.
right,
It's be a really big thing, so.
okay.
And I'm not critiquing this bid or saying I think it's too much money. I don't know how to evaluate it.
Mas Verde, in terms of, doing other work for the city, what else have they done?
They have just done I guess that other proposal for drainage. I don't believe we've worked with them on anything else in the past that I'm
Okay.
aware of.
In dealing with them, I mean, Ted Moss is like, he's a pro. I mean,
They're very
He was-
responsive.
Yeah.
and
he
they're- yeah.
was,
Yeah,
there wasn't anything that he was, well, I don't have any idea. He just knew his stuff.
yeah.
he's
So-
another contractor that I pulled off the Violet Crown Trail. And also, you know, if you read through this, you know, they also talk about, replacing plants and things for up to a year. So I think their expertise, the fact that they will, help as far as providing the technical direction and so forth on, maintenance and so forth. They will give advice as far as plant diseases. These guys are very knowledgeable. They have botanists on staff, and I hesitate to bring somebody in to do this and spend this kind of money that's not highly qualified.
You know what, I'm just thinking, comparing these numbers to some money I spent on some landscaping at my house several years ago, this is almost cheap. So I'm willing to make a motion that we go with the,
May I have
Vic-
one more
Victoria, go
question?
ahead.
Ashley, so we're not gonna be, is there no chance that with our plan to, get more information from Aishan on the trail, there's probably no chance we can get that into any budget discussions?
I'll miss the exceptional item
Okay.
deadline. I suppose a council member or someone might still add one or amend something to include something.
Okay,
if
so
they
if we
want
can
to.
get it in by the August meeting, it might still be able to make it.
Right, at that point, I don't think, staff probably wouldn't push it through, but if you had spoke to one of your liaisons and they would like something in there, I'm sure we can, put that on.
But this could make it, the trees,
Yep.
the landscaping.
If we pass a motion.
Yeah. I'm just trying to, we have so many things scattered out there, I'm trying to stack them up to see what would end up being able to make the budget
I'd like to see something happen.
as the special exception. And if this wall's in there, but it's kinda out of our control, right? Because the council has already got the engineers and stuff looking at that. There's nothing else we can do, even though it's still considered park. But we can do this and possibly the trail at a later time, is what you're saying.
That sounds right.
Is there any project we're working on right now that I'm not including as far as numbers?
Diana, was there any other project you had, smaller project? Okay. So one,
I think
just
fine
a
to push
thought,
it
one
in
thing
there.
that you could do is say, we could have a motion, to do this tree project, for, following Mas Verde's plan for $36,000,
It's actually,
or,
No.
I'm sorry, for $48,000.
With irrigation.
With irrigation. But we could ask them to get 2 additional bids, to be considered by council, to compete with that.
You're asking who to get 2 additional bids?
Well, I guess the motion would be to do Mas Verde's plan for a maximum amount of 48,940.87. And then you all go get bids for three, from
Right,
3.
right, yeah,
And
I
so
would-
Mas
yeah.
Verde basically has done their bid, would get 2 more bids, and as long as it doesn't exceed the 48,000.
Sure. Yeah, I would say give them a max amount. You could say, we want 50,000, and then here's an example of one. This is where we're coming up with it, and then we'll do the procurement.
I would like to say that I've dealt with several landscapers in my own yard. Moss is like heads and shoulders above just in expertise, so it would be hard to get an equivalent bid, because you'd have to find someone of his expertise, and it was
You can
impressive.
get a cheaper bid for sure.
We
Could you
could-
get a
we could probably
quality
get a cheaper
is the
bid.
question. Yeah.
Then make a motion that you want it to be Mas Verde.
Okay.
I think that's
Are
totally
we
fine.
ready for any, okay.
I don't know that. Well, I don't know that we'd be. I think that wouldn't follow the procurement laws, that we would have to go out and get additional bids. That doesn't mean if we got another bid and it was half the price that we'd have to choose it. So at that
Right,
point,
this
that would
doesn't
just be a
exceed
discussion on
50,000.
quality and.
Well, that
and,
one doesn't
you know.
exceed 50,000.
Right.
So if you just put that out there as the motion, I'll vote on it, and it doesn't exceed 50, so you wouldn't have to get other bids.
We
Okay.
have to get, we do have to contact other, if it's over 3,000, between 3,000 and 50,000, we still have to contact 3, I believe it's historically underutilized businesses to get
Mhm.
quotes, and then if it's over 50, that's when the bidding requirement kicks in. So
Kicks in.
what I'm saying is we'll take care of the procurement part.
Yes.
Um,
Okay.
And especially if if we can vouch for their quality and everything, and we'll still have to be approved by council eventually, and so that
Right.
can all come into the discussion at that point.
Okay.
We gotta know something.
Okay, one other thing, Kevin, pardon me for keep bringing him up, but he loves the idea of trees. So one council
Well,
member is in
come on,
support.
let's just make your motion for Christ's sake.
Yeah. So,
Hush. Okay, so I make a motion to approve Mas Verde's quotation for adding trees, irrigation per his estimate ID of 4663432 for $48,940.87.
I second the motion.
Could we make that in the form of an exceptional item for the budget process? Is that okay?
I don't know what that actually means,
Okay.
but if Melissa thinks it's okay, yeah.
yeah, I mean, you're wanting it to be in the budget,
If that's how
not
you-
just
if
that we
that's how you
pass
want
it,
it,
but
yeah.
you want it to be included in the budget,
Yes.
so it'll be paid for.
Okay.
To be included in the budget, yes.
Okay.
So included in the budget or as an exceptional?
To be included as an
Second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Oh, motion passes.
So another question, say they don't put it in the budget, can we ask them to approve it for us to procure donations? If they don't, or is that
Ashley,
something we
can we do
do
that?
at another meeting?
If we approve it and they don't, what
Mhm.
happens next?
If they do not budget for it, that definitely would open up the discussion of, well, if we can get the funds elsewhere, can we still do it? So I think at that point, you'd want them to, we would get them to approve the actual project, basically accepting the donation of the money.
Mhm.
But yeah,
But
it
that's
would,
a separate thing. is what
yeah,
you're
I
saying.
would say that
Okay.
would be after, if it doesn't work through this normal process.
Okay.
But I will say they're always looking for, we've checked other ways to get money, we've considered getting, donations, we've considered, our CDC or other type of fundraising efforts. So if that was part of the discussion, that would probably help the case. If it
Mhm.
was, hey, we're willing to, if you can give us this, we're gonna commit to trying to get donations for most of it, so you don't actually end up having to pay for it, that's probably helpful.
I think this is something we could get donations for, if we needed to.
Originally, we talked about this being, trees came up as a way for people to honor,
Right.
and, but that seems to have just fallen away, so.
I think what we were trying to avoid is becoming memorial, cemetery
Yeah.
memorial area, so.
All
But-
old headstones.
Yeah. All right, update from Western Hills Little League, and, is there anything else on trees? Okay. 6, update from Western Hills Little League and Western Hills Girls Softball,
We did not get any updates sent to us, so they're not here.
okay. And then discussion regarding potential park commission budget requests, I feel like we've covered that in our motions. Quarterly police department park report, did y'all get a chance to look at it? Just,
Mhm.
it's always fascinating to see what's happening in our parks.
The eclipse watchers.
Yes, right. And then does staff have anything else to report or add? Okay, great. Do I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I make that motion.
All right,
Second.
thank you. Great, well done, you guys. Look at us. I think that was really great, and we had good discussion.